Welcome back, Addicts, to another TV-related video. I'm Josh, and that little guy over there is Toby, and today I'll be talking about Iron Fist Season 2. Now, I don't know how long this has been out. The date actually kind of snuck up on me, so, and especially, I'm not really sure when this video is going to be uploaded, so it might be a little bit of time, but as for me, I just recently got done watching Season 2 about a couple days ago, at least by the time of this recording, and I wanted to give my thoughts on just how good Season 2 was. So to start off with, I'll give you a brief glimpse of what the story entails in Season 2. We get to see Danny kind of, I guess, coping with the events of the Defenders show. We get to see him a little bit in Luke Cage Season 2, but we get to dive in a little bit deeper to that aspect. We get to see that he has been taking care of the city, keeping his promise that he gave to Matt at the end of the Defenders, and he's trying to keep the streets clean. And especially a big threat that he is trying to deal with in this season is a war that's going on between the Triads and the Hatchet Men, which are two gangs. And so that's kind of like his goal at the start of the season, and we get to see him deal with that throughout the season. But the bigger looming threat is, of course, from Season 1 of Iron Fist, which is Davos and Joy. Davos is officially, enlisted Joy's help and getting revenge on Danny and Ward, and we get just to see the culmination of their plans unfold and the aftermath of that. This is a season that we get really only one new important character. The rest are pretty much the same, except, of course, with Luke Cage getting a bunch of reoccurring guest stars, but they're not really necessarily new to the Netflix universe, is Misty Knight, and we get to see her about show up halfway through the season and then stay till the very end. But the new character that we get is a woman by the name of Mary Walker, who has something special to her. I won't say too much of that right now. I might have a spoiler section towards the end of the video where we'll save that for that. But just kind of going through like the season, trying to keep it vague, we get to see just where Danny's mentality is. We get to see what he thinks is his role, and not only having the Iron Fist, but his destiny in a sense. We get to see Colleen kind of coming to terms with the events that happened in taking out the Hand and how she overcomes those. With Davos, of course, we get to see more of a brotherly struggle and an inward conflict between him and Danny, and then more of the same with Joy, with her dealings with Danny, but more so Ward, and just trying to see where that family relationship goes. With Ward, we get to see him dealing with his multiple addictions and trying to figure out what kind of man he is, especially since his father was mainly the person that made him, and he's trying to figure out, just exactly who he is as an individual. With Mary Walker, her full name's Mary Walker, but we get to see her used as kind of a plot element in terms of bouncing to the one right after the other, and she has a pretty prominent role. She bounces back and forth in her roles, which is mainly due to who her character is supposed to be. But that's essentially what happens in Season 2. There's definitely some things towards the middle of the season that kind of shake up, I would say, the whole founding of Iron Fist as a show. And there are some cliffhangers at the end that try to set up something more, but also as like a closing. So I'm not really sure if they were confident in season 2 enough to make some, kind of sneaks into the next season. But they do have, those staple Marvel cliffhangers. But getting into my thoughts, this is a good season, I think. Nothing really stands out in the season to me. All of the episodes, for instance, none of them I have like a favorite episode. It's just I think all of them were pretty solid, I guess to say. I mean, they weren't outstandingly consistent, but they were just simply, good. They weren't bad, but I guess sometimes they're a little slow, and it is a little bit frustrating towards maybe not so much the middle, but I'll just say the back half of the season. There's some things that pops off and some character roles being switched a little bit. I'm sure people that have seen the show get what I'm saying in that. But overall, I do think it was an improvement from season 1. There was definitely, I would say, a stronger presence in the villain. Because in season 1, with Joy and Ward's father being the main antagonist, he was something that was more of a looming throughout the entire season, and it wasn't until the very end that he got pushed over the edge to actually have direct conflict with them. And in this season, it's very, right out the get-go, there's some tension for sure, and then, I would say probably a third into the season, or maybe I guess it'd be like episode 3 or 4 that we actually get to see the face-to-face conflict. So the villain with Davos and Joy, they're very more, I guess you could say, direct in their confrontation in this season. And I think that was something that helped a lot. I will say the fights, I think, were a lot better. Not to say I hated the first season. I actually thought it was decent. But with that being said, I still think it was probably the worst season out of all the Marvel Netflix shows. Now I kind of think, it's kind of hard to put, because Jessica Jones season 2 was pretty decent, but there's some elements of it where I think it could be kind of put into this. I think alone, though, the fight scenes made it a little bit better. There was a little bit more action. There's a little bit more stories going on in this season. And I definitely think it was a step up. As for, there's some things, though, that plot decisions, when they were first being done in the season, it felt a little forced, or in terms of, just the reception they got from season 1, it seemed like they made certain decisions based on that. And, at the end, they still wanted to promise something. But it felt more of just like they were trying to build towards something. So they're like, hey, we're fixing the problem in season 2, and then we're going to try to give you something really wow in season 3. That's what it kind of felt like to me. Now, I'll probably go into a rating just real quick, and then I'll talk a little spoilery, so then that way the people that want to see my solid rating don't have to wait. For me, I think this is like a middle tier. I like it. It's, like I said before, it's pretty sound. It's got some great choreographing and fight scenes. Like Luke Cage Season 2, I think they upped the budget a little bit, because there's a little bit bigger scope fights, especially with him using the Iron Fist in a lot of fights. And I think it was pretty solid. I would say if you guys liked the first season, I think you'll like the second season too. If you were somebody that's on the fence about season 1, I think you could watch season 2 and get a little bit more enjoyment out of it. I don't know if you would love it, but I think it's definitely improved to where if you had mixed feelings about it, you should recheck it out to see if it's going in a direction that you like. But with that being said, I'm going to get into my brief spoiler talk and maybe a little bit of speculation. So I'll flat out tell you that I don't know much about Iron Fist as a character. The comics, I don't really read the comics, and I haven't followed anybody covering the comics. So I'm a bit lost in terms of where detail comes into the certain storylines. I do know that Davos has had the power that he had in the comics, and I do know Colleen at a certain time has had the power of the Iron Fist, but I don't really know if it was done specifically like this, where they're playing it off where only one person can have it at a time. But it felt weird to me because, they make that a big plot point, and when they first bring up that, like, Colleen should have it, he shouldn't have it because he doesn't know. It felt a little forced, I'll be honest with you. I didn't really like it. I mean, and that's saying a lot because, the actress that plays Colleen, I think she did a great job. She's one of the standouts of a good performance in the show. And she's definitely probably my favorite character between the both seasons. But I just didn't like the fact that they were going to give her the fist. And for me, it felt kind of a cop-out, because it felt like with the poor reception Season 1 got, they were just like, oh, well, what was the one praise from Season 1? Colleen, let's give it to her and showcase her instead of Danny. And I don't know, it just felt a little forced, and I can't really say I liked it. But with that being said, though, even though I don't really support the decision, I am interested to see where it goes if they come back for Season 3. Because, Colleen is such an interesting character. She's such a likable character that I'm interested to see how she holds up using the fist, and if she has maybe some same shortcomings that Danny feels like he had, or if she actually ends up doing it 10 times better than he did. With Davos, I liked Davos. I thought he was a great step up in terms of a villain. That's not to say the last villain in the first season wasn't bad. I think he still had a good presence, but in this one we get to see, his actions back up his words. And I pretty much knew that he was going to get the fist, but especially from like some of the trailers. But I did like how he used it. It was just that the final fight was still good, but I felt like it needed a little bit more of the glowing fists, if you know what I mean. But as far as that, I also like the addition of Marion Walker, the duality of her multiple personalities. I think that's an interesting concept in, just in general to play on, and I like how they did it here. I'm not exactly sure at what importance she's going to play later on, because it felt like she was going to do a big presence later on, just from the fact that they were emphasizing on her so much in this season, which she does have an interesting backstory that I think could connect possibly, because they do have the connection, somewhat connection between her and Joy and Ward's mother. So I'm really interested to see that. Getting onto the cliffhanger, though, the cliffhanger is something that I do like. It showed Danny shooting mini Iron Fists out of the 1911s that he had, which I think that is a version of the comics. Like, again, I don't read the comics, so I'm not entirely sure, but I did like that. I'm curious to see, though, how exactly he got that, if there's more fists that it can hold it at once. Does that mean Davos could still potentially have his? And I apologize for that noise. But I think it has potential. I also did like Ward. I think his actor does a great job. He was also another highlight for me in the first season, just because of his performance alone. And I think they were able to, magnify that or emphasize his character a lot in this season, because not only do they have that potential with the actor, but now they gave him a more interesting story, I feel. And just trying to expand the possibilities of where he can go, especially with him joining Danny on his quest to Asia. And so I'm really curious to see. Again, I do think I liked it. I liked it for the majority, and I'm curious to see where they're gonna go for season 3, if they do that, or if they just come back as guest characters, whether that be the Defenders, or maybe tagging in with Luke Cage, because I think they left Luke in a really interesting area or a place, and same with this. So I'm curious to see where they're going to bring all those together again. But anyway, guys, that will conclude my review for Iron Fist Season 2. And thank you for watching. If you want to check out any of our other stuff, we have a bunch of shows, reviews, and movie reviews, as well as game stuff coming out. So be sure to check that out. And if you want to follow us on any social media or check out our podcast, you can check all the links down in the description. But anyway, guys, my dogs are walking around everywhere, so I better go. Talk to you later, Addicts. Bye.